In most instances where an individual vanishes, there is often a linear progression of events that might explain what could have happened to them. Some vanish in plain sight under seemingly impossible circumstances, never to be seen again. Such was the case of a man named Owen Parfitt from England in 1768. Owen Parfitt was living with his sister Mary at the time, and he was staying at her cottage in Shepton Mallet, a small town in Somerset. He was not living with his sister by choice, however. Still, because he was virtually paralyzed and required assistance for day-to-day activities, Owen suffered from advanced rheumatism. He was also a heavy drinker by 1768. His old age, along with his deteriorating health, would catch up to him, resulting in his paralysis in June of that year. Owen wanted to soak up some summer sun on the front porch, which he immensely enjoyed doing in the warmer months due to his predicament. His sister would have to carry him outside, and she would do so with the help of a neighbor named Susanna Snook. Mary and Susanna would place Owen outside in his great coat, wrapped in a blanket per the usual routine, and then go on their business. Mary would go back inside to do chores, and Susanna would return to her home approximately 50 yards away across the road from Owen. Several farmhands were working as they had been the whole day. They were within easy earshot of Owen was in plain view of him. After a couple of hours, Mary saw a storm approaching, so she decided it was time to bring Owen back inside. She went out to the front porch, expecting to see Owen relaxing on the chair, or perhaps sleeping as he often did. To her utter shock, however, Owen wasn't there. The blanket that covered him was left on the chair, and the greatcoat he wore, but he was nowhere to be found. Mary first assumed that someone else may have helped him inside, as Owen often asked a neighbor to do so if she could not hear him. Still, he was not in his room or anywhere on the premises. Mary then went house to house to see if anyone nearby may have seen him. However, nobody did. Perhaps most interesting was that the workers in front of the cottage had not seen or heard anything. They could clearly see Owen from where they worked, and were close enough to communicate with him. They surely would have noticed if somebody came to move him, but they never reported such a thing. At this point, Mary became worried, so she recruited neighbors and other townsfolk to search for Owen. Unfortunately, no one in the whole area had seen him. This becomes all the more bizarre when you consider the placement of the perfect cottage. According to an article from 1877, it was on a turnpike road surrounded by other cottages close at hand. It was less than 100 yards away from the town center. So many people were near the cottage and the busiest part of town. This makes Owen's sudden vanishing even more perplexing, as there were too many witnesses in the area for absolutely no one to have seen him following Owen's disappearance. An extensive search for him was undertaken. Shepton Mallet was a small town where everybody knew one another, so everyone wanted to pitch in and do their part to find him. Unfortunately for them, however, they would never manage to do so. Police and neighbors scoured every road connected to the Parfitt cottage, walked through miles of fields, and even dragged several nearby rivers, all to no avail. An article in the Somerset County Herald would say of the case that, quote, "The helpless man had completely vanished, leaving the greatcoat hanging on the back of his chair. It seemed as if Owen Parfitt, the man who couldn't walk, had vanished into thin air." Still, the question remains, what could have possibly happened to Owen? Due to the bizarre nature of the case, the general opinion at the time was that he had been spirited away by supernatural means. Modern analysis has come up with many theories as to what could have occurred that day, although none of them can completely explain the strange circumstances surrounding the incident. One idea is that Mary herself may have been implicated, as she had been the last person in contact with him. She was the closest to where he disappeared from. There is no evidence for this. However, she was also in her 80s. It's doubtful Mary could have mustered the strength to move Owen so quickly that nobody noticed her. Also, she would have had no reason to harm Owen, as they were known to have a good relationship. Another theory is that perhaps Owen had not been paralyzed and just walked off alone. He was known to be a prankster in his younger years. Some people believe this may have been his final prank. While in the realm of possibility, this theory, too, doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Why would Owen keep up this act for many years, only to suddenly vanish on a random afternoon? What could he possibly have benefited from this? Owen had not worked in years and had no money, so where could he have gone anyway? If he did leave of his own accord, there is no logical reason why Owen would just up and vanish, even if he could indeed walk. In any case, none of these theories can explain how nobody in the whole town saw Owen. In this case, the main point of contention is how Owen Parfitt was somehow removed from a busy and populated area while completely avoiding the detection of anyone nearby. Out of the many theories put forth over the years, none of them has ever been able to explain this fact. He would have had to have carried it out, and with the layout of the Parfitt cottage, it's simply not possible that this could have happened with absolutely no one noticing. This aspect of the case is really what drove the supernatural claims, as there is seemingly no other logical explanation as to how he was able to vanish from plain sight. Owen's great coat, which was left hanging off the chair, is another small detail in this case which adds to the mystery. We know that he was wearing it outside when he was first placed there by Mary and Susanna. If so, how did it end up neatly placed on the chair? Had somebody wanted to take Owen, they would have had to have done so quickly, as the area was heavily trafficked. Why would they have taken the time to remove his coat and place it neatly on the chair? This doesn't seem like the actions of someone trying to be discreet. On the other hand, if Owen had walked away on his own accord, as some still believe, then why would he have done so? He was wearing his sleeping garments underneath his coat, so it would have made sense to keep wearing it, especially if he was trying to disappear without being seen. He would have stood out far more, roaming the streets in his pajamas. This detail is often overlooked, although it is one of the more bizarre aspects of the case. A final alternate theory is that the story itself could have been skewed over the years, with the case being so fantastical and hundreds of years old. Many assume the only possible explanation is that certain key elements were lost over time, which could connect the missing dots. However, the story can be verified and is very well documented. Numerous articles and publications on the case date back to the 1700s. The earliest article on it comes from the Bath Chronicle in October 1789. They were able to confirm that he did, in fact, vanish in June under extremely bizarre circumstances. Other than the articles, there are numerous records of Owen Parfitt having lived in Shepton Mallet during that period. None of the records can provide a death date. However, this falls in line with the story. While the case may sound too astonishing to be accurate, we can confirm with historical records that it happened. However, it has still not been resolved after more than 200 years. The case of Owen Parfitt may go down in history as one of the most bizarre disappearances ever. His paralysis added a degree of mystery to the story, which made it much more perplexing than other cases of missing persons. When an individual vanishes, detectives will consider what actions they may have taken and where these actions could have led them. Since Owen could not walk, he could not have been responsible for what happened to him, which made it very difficult to investigate his disappearance. There was no logical starting point for the investigation. All police and neighbors were presented with was a seemingly impossible scene of a paralyzed man vanishing right from his porch in a busy area. It is almost no wonder that, at the time, people believed that Owen encountered a fate of supernatural origin. Whether you believe this, however, or simply that there is a logical explanation that has not yet been considered, we can only know that something genuinely anomalous did occur on June 6, 1768, in Shepton Mallet.